Hey, Lead Store fans, this is Bill Rice again with some more sales training. And today I actually wanted to take a little bit of a step back because I know a lot of you have watched us for our sales training, specifically how we talk about cold calling, drip email campaigns. You got a lot of value out of that. But in the background, you've heard us mention Age Leads, and specifically Age Leads Store, since that's our brand. But you might not really understand what that is, or more probably, you have a lot of questions as to what exactly are age leads. You conceptually kind of have heard of them, know of them, might even have some friends that are using them, but you don't really know what they are. So I'm going to cover that, and also make sure you stay till the end of the video. I'm also going to do some specific applications of how you can use age leads with insurance, mortgage, and solar installation businesses to grow your business. So stay tuned. We're going to cover all that in this episode. Okay, like I mentioned, I really want to take a kind of a step back here and talk to you a little more in depth about what exactly age leads are, and then potentially how you would use this source of consumer data in your overall building of your business. And so before we even get started, I know that as I go through this, I've been in this business for more than 15 years. So a lot of these concepts are just sort of super intuitive to me. I understand how it works. I know how the business works. And so I might not actually hit your specific question just because I'm so familiar with it. So I would love for you to take a second right now before I get started, give you a few seconds, go down into the comments in YouTube and ask me your number one or two questions about specifically age leads. And it can be as simple as what are they, or some nuance about what they are. As I get going through this, you'll probably generate some more questions in your mind about the specifics of how they're actually created. And then the number two thing that I would love for you to comment about and leave me some questions is how to integrate it into your business. All of you are set up different. You have slightly different context. Maybe you work for a larger company or broker or agency, or you may just be doing it on your own as a mortgage broker, an independent solar installer. This is all kinds of different contexts. So as it pertains to actually integrating it into your sales process, or maybe even about sales systems, I'd love to have those questions as well, because it's one thing to understand them. It's another thing to actually buy them and use them in an effective way. So I'm sure you've got all kinds of questions about implementation. So again, pile those into the comments here, and I will actively, especially over the next few weeks, go in there and answer absolutely as many questions and as much detail as I possibly can. Okay, so let's dive into the content. So first and foremost, age leads are somewhat kind of defined by their name, okay? But more specifically, age leads are the result of real-time internet leads that are generated by professional marketing companies aging over time. So real-time leads, by definition, are only real-time within a short span of time, usually 24 hours, maybe 48 or a couple days, but in a very short time period. If you are buying real-time internet leads, and I know a lot of you are, or you're familiar with people who are buying them, the fundamental assumption that you have and the agreement that you have with whoever that lead provider is that if they give you a real-time lead that you're paying, $15, $25 for, your expectation is that that consumer filled out that form or made that phone call within a very short time frame of you buying the lead. So that actually generates a problem, right? So when those leads are generated, there's an amount of sort of volume and demand coming in on this side of the equation, but the lead provider might not have enough people on this side, enough brokers, agents, or installers on this side to actually give the consumer what they promised. And generally, in these situations, the internet marketing company, the real-time lead provider, is promising the consumer, if you fill out my web form, I'm actually going to help you comparison shop. So I'm going to give you anywhere from 3 to 5 different quotes. Well, if I don't have 3 to 5 different preparers or providers on this side to give you those quotes, then I'm short. And when I'm short, that means that lead is going to sit there and age. And at some point, even if if they had more providers, more mortgage brokers, more insurance agents, more installers, they wouldn't be able to sell that to them as a real-time lead. So this creates this sort of category of aged leads. Okay, so that's kind of what an aged lead is, but I'm going to step one step behind that just for clarity, because again, I know a lot of you are probably brand new to this concept of internet leads. So how do the real-time internet lead providers get their consumers? Well, generally, they're professional marketers, which most of you aren't, and that's really the real value proposition. Using their techniques of digital marketing, they can bring in that demand more efficiently than you can, and they can actually give you a real person at the end. Whereas if you were to do that, you'd probably spend a lot of money, but they're using the typical digital marketing techniques. They're using search engine optimization, pay-per-click and AdWords and Bing ads and Facebook ads, and they're using email marketing to kind of bring these folks to respond to their email marketing. So they're professional digital marketers, and that's how they're generating the real-time lead. But again, sometimes they don't have enough customers, or those customers are not ready to buy those real-time leads, and so there's additional, what we actually call legs of the lead left to fulfill what they promised to the consumer, which was comparison of quotes anywhere from 3 to 5. So this category of aged leads, that internet real-time lead starts to age over time, and it creates an aged lead. So folks like Age Lead Store actually partner up with these lead providers to sell that the additional sort of commitments to that consumer as an aged lead. So that's fundamentally what an aged lead is. So let's go to our kind of number 2 point, and that is, what is the benefit of an aged lead, or even an internet lead specifically, over some other types of consumer data that you might have used in the past? So fundamentally, internet leads have some really special characteristics that make them quite attractive to building your business and to adding them to your sales process. So first and foremost, they have a very high intent. So again, fundamentally, when the internet marketing company generated that lead, they actually captured a consumer's attention, and that consumer said, yes, I am interested in understanding my options for refinancing my mortgage, or potentially understanding whether or not I could get a better rate on my auto insurance, or whether or not I need life or health insurance, or I need Medicare or Medicaid supplements, or potentially I'm curious about solar installation and what it could mean an offset in my monthly energy bill. So when that person arrived at that website, by filling out that form, they said, yes, I'm truly interested in getting a quote from a salesperson. So these have high intent. And they have, as I mentioned, they said, I want someone to contact me. And this is the other, I think, really big benefit to this category of consumer data. By virtue of that process that they're somewhat technically savvy, right? They understand the internet, they understand how to fill out a web form, they're receptive to that type of internet marketing. And as a result, that's probably a good target customer for you, even if you're not able to contact them initially, just for an ongoing marketing system to work and be effective with that consumer, because again, they understand kind of that method, and that's their preferred method of shopping, right? And so all of those things sort of combine to create a high degree of value with internet leads, and even aged leads that have aged over a period of time. Because again, there's definitely intent there. They have asked you to contact them. And then the number 3 thing is that you just know that they understand how to use the internet and will engage with you if you have a good marketing system over the course of your sales process. Okay. I do want to be honest and transparent with you. One of the things that is really important for you to understand is to have the right level of expectations for aged leads. So there's a couple of things that happen once the aged lead sort of develops and has aged 30 or 60 or 90 days, depending on what you're buying. You have to really put yourself in the mindset of the consumer and understand what has happened in their sales journey, right? And in their buying journey. So one thing that could happen in the next 30 days is that consumer is actually has been taken care of, right? They've been able to get their installation or the information they need. They've been able to get their refinance or purchase their home. They've been able to get their new auto or life or health policy. So there's a potential that intent has been satisfied, right? So there's a relatively high percentage of these leads that the initial intent has already been satisfied. The other thing that potentially has happened is as the lead ages, we did a whole video on this, just the data itself inherently, because of consumer behaviors, they will change their phone numbers, they will change their emails, and so some of the data will not be accurate. We do our best, our level best, to ensure that quality, and we have some advanced innovative technology to keep that information as current as possible, but that is a real part of the expectation. You got to understand that there is a percentage of these that we won't be able to contact, or we won't be able to contact with all the forms of contact. So we may have to update a phone number, or we may have to update an email or something like that as we go through our sales process. So having said that, it tells you that these particular leads, and even actually real-time internet leads, suffer some of the same problems. They need a system around them. They need some system that allows you to automate a lot of this contact outreach and ongoing lead nurturing in order to make this a large substantial part of your business in an ongoing basis. So you're nurturing these much more like customer service than necessarily kind of that initial sales. So it's important for you to have a system in place to really get the enormous ROI that you can potentially get on these things. Because again, you buy a real-time lead for $15 or $25 and you're only converting probably those, even at best case, 2%. There's a lot of them you even in that 24-hour period just goes unresponsive, or you can't contact, or even have some bad information. So that even needs a system, but age leads particularly. But the advantage to age leads is you're only paying $1 or pennies on $1 for them. And so it's really easy to kind of get over that hump for a good ROI. The other thing that actually is a huge advantage to age leads, in my experience, is that in the real-time lead experience, because there are multiple people coming into that consumer all at once, that can be enormously create a lot of anxiety and overwhelming for the consumer, because they're getting all that attention sort of immediately. So giving them 15, 30, 60 days to kind of cool off from that process sometimes is a huge advantage. The other thing that happens is as that lead ages, potentially there's subsequent sales that are there. There are also just a lot of times, even if the intent is satisfied, so a sale was made, those salespeople are so poor at their ongoing process of serving that customer that they just kind of walk away and abandon them. They don't talk to them again. So if you jump in right after that sale and you service them as if they were your customer, a lot of times these leads, these consumers, start to assume and sort of subconsciously think that you're the actual service provider, not the person that sold them the leads. This is really effective in the mortgage industry, because so many mortgages are kind of bought and sold, and so the servicing is often much different. The company is much different than the actual person who sold it to them. And so this is really effective for mortgage, because you just become kind of their trusted source. And so a lot of times there's an opportunity down the line to make a subsequent sale. Okay. All those things having been said is why that I always tell people that are buying age leads to think of the investment specifically as a business builder, not necessarily a silver bullet. Now, granted, if you are running short of your quota for the month, and we did a whole video on this, I'll put a link up here. We did a whole video on kind of how to manage getting to your quota. A lot of times people miss their quota because they just simply don't have enough activity or enough leads. And so a lot of times, if you're middle month and you're falling short on your quota and you know you're not going to hit it, age leads can be a little bit of a silver bullet, because if you buy 500 leads and you work them really hard, make the phone calls and that sort of thing, you can probably close that gap. But that's really not the best way to use age leads. The best way to use age leads is actually to figure out what your budget is in order to build your database and invest in building a book of business, and then every month buy whatever that budget is in age leads and add them in to your book of business and work them in your system. And so every month you are slowly investing in a large and growing book of business, because inside of there are consumers that you know, again, by virtue of internet leads, they had intent, they're familiar with the internet, and they're probably going to be responsive to your approach. So this is a great way to actually build a sustainable business over time. Okay, so hopefully you have stuck with me to the end, because I'm going to talk specifically and strategically about how I would integrate aged leads into some of these individual verticals. So I know most of you, or a lot of our audience, is insurance agents. So let me talk to them first. So insurance is kind of like the perfect market for aged leads, because the insurance business is such that consumers are essentially always in the market for insurance. They're always looking for potentially a better rate on their auto insurance. They potentially have kind of the wrong life insurance or not life insurance, or they've got kind of a lot of questions or confusion around health insurance and whether or not they need supplements and those sorts of things. So at any given time, I think you would agree with me, any consumer that you talk to, there's probably some insurance opportunity in there, because you can usually either get them a better rate because maybe you're more knowledgeable than the last person, or they're overinsured or underinsured and you fit it better, or potentially just maybe their credit's improved and that sort of thing. You can give them a better rate. So a lot of times, most people that you can talk to, you can probably create some compelling reason to update their particular insurance situation. So in the case of aged leads, I think there's really no reason to buy real-time over aged leads, because they're kind of always in the market. So a real-time lead doesn't really give you much more advantage, because a lot of times that real-time insurance lead is just looking for information or quick quote, right? But by you buying the aged lead, all you got to do is sort of create the demand. And since they've used the process before, a lot of times they'll just kind of assume that through that process, you're engaging them as well. So I think aged leads for insurance just makes a ton of sense. Why pay $15 for something when you can pay $1 or less and build your book of business in almost the same volume and pace at a substantial savings, much easier to get over the ROI. So I'd create a nice system of educating them about different types of insurance and what they should be doing about their insurance. And I can guarantee you with those outbound cold calls, maybe some email, specifically direct mail, I think is a really solid strategy in here. You will get a responsive customer because they're kind of always in the market. Okay, so the mortgage business, this is one that I actually came out of. Mortgage business needs sort of a little more strategic approach to it, in my experience, in that the kind of mortgage buying journey is much different than insurance. So it's something that they don't do necessarily frequently, but there are some facets and characteristics of the mortgage business that makes this aged leads very effective as well. So the first thing is that one, people often use these websites to request quotes. Mortgage industry, much like insurance, is very aggressive. And so a lot of times they get overwhelmed, and that creates an opportunity for you with aged leads. So one, they often get overwhelmed with high pressure sales in a moment when they're trying to purchase a home or refinance, and they just need to be educated because it's complex, it's scary, it's a lot of money. And so that initial sales process that comes from real-time internet leads can be really overwhelming. So a lot of consumers will just simply shut down for a moment and take a break, right? And so coming in there at 15 or 30 days, a lot of times has a big opportunity. And coming in there in a gentle, sort of educating way is a great way to do that. I've done a couple different videos on this. And this works for insurance as well. Just coming in and say, hey, I know that you applied online. I wanted to see if you were taken care of or you had any questions. And just an opening like that, whether on the phone or through email, super, super effective, right? So that's one set of opportunities. The other set of opportunities that works well for significantly older age leads and of course cheaper and being able to build more people into your database is just simply the fact that during that process, a lot of times loan officers are either not experienced enough, have a really poor process, but the customer experience and satisfaction in the moment that they're getting their actual mortgage is bad, to say it nicely, for most people. So even in that, again, 30-day time span, while they're actually working on the mortgage, there may be an opportunity for you to steal it away just because they're having a bad service experience, or they've got hooked up with a loan officer that's just not experienced enough to actually deal with their more complex situation and serve their need, right? So that's a second opportunity. It's just bad customer experience. You get to go in there and sort of steal that away because you're more experienced, or you can help with more complex mortgage situations. The third opportunity is just simply, and this is particularly in refinance, because of market conditions, we're actually again in the lowest interest rate environment ever. It just keeps like going down and goes up a little bit and goes back down. So again, super low interest rates right now. So there's an opportunity for just rate and term refinances, or in places like, kind of all over the country now, where equity has been exploding, there's opportunities to now take out cash as a cash out refinance, again, with super low rates. So there may be an opportunity, maybe they actually purchased 6 months or a year ago, but now they're ready to kind of take some of that equity back out in a cash out refi. Or, this is probably the most common scenario, initially when people purchase a home or get into a home, a lot of times they're probably trying to do that a little bit early, right? They didn't have all the down payment that they should have had, or maybe their credit isn't perfect, or maybe they're not really kind of secure in their job or their income. But over the 6 months to a year, income's gotten better, they've got a better job, their credit improves, potentially they have more cash in the bank. And so a lot of times there's an opportunity to refinance and give them a better mortgage product. So again, buying into this aged category of leads can give you that opportunity, because I can guarantee you the loan officer that did the deal is not keeping up with them and in a position to educate them that, hey, you might be able to get into a better loan now. Last but not least is solar installation. So this is a subcategory of home improvement, but it is so hot. Everybody is there's a lot of demand in the consumer market to understand solar and installation. The technology is getting better, a little bit cheaper. It's easier to install. It's more attractive. There's all kinds of reasons that people should be considering solar as a part of how they serve their energy needs. But this is a fairly interesting and unique market. It kind of falls into that place of emerging technology where most of the consumer demand, even though it's super high, a lot of it's in a phase of kind of understanding what it is. It's a new concept. They don't understand how it works. They don't understand what the installation looks like. They don't know how many panels they need. They don't know what the offset is. They don't know what the dollar value is. And then add on to that, there's a lot of research around this. Kind of the number one reason for this buyer to actually come in and become a lead or to make this inquiry is because they have kind of a moral or an emotional want to do better with energy, right? To be a better consumer of energy. And so they actually just want to be kind of a better human on this planet. And so in that case, cost actually becomes less of a factor. And so there's some interesting dynamics in there. All that's to say that generally the leads that are coming in initially are not high intent buyers. They're trying to do that initial education, and not until they've done that education, that research, that math around what the offset to their energy bill will be, understanding kind of how many panels and what they actually need. Not until all of that is satisfied is the lead actually a high intent buyer. And so as a result, again, this is a great category. Maybe that 30 to 60 day old lead is actually a better lead because they've taken the time to research and sort of kind of get themselves excited about purchasing this solar installation. So that may be actually a little bit of a warmed up lead for you. And if nothing else, you can kind of get into that process of helping to educate them. So again, solar is a great category for age leads. I hope this has been helpful and given you a lot more information about what age leads actually are, how they're generated, and then potentially how to use them as part of your sales process and part of your business building. Again, I want to open up the opportunity for you in the comment section. If you have any questions about anything I've said or want to go into more detail, I would love to hear those questions, and I will actively respond to them as much detail as I possibly can to help you grow your business. That's always our goal here at Aged Leads Store. So with that said, I would love for you to go and subscribe, because that will give you access to all of the sales training videos that we do. And there's a lot of playlists there that you can go through right now to help your business. And then we do this every single week, so you don't want to miss that. Hit the subscribe button. The other thing that's there is that little bell. By hitting that bell, you will know when we go live, and you will know every single time we release a new video, and you won't miss a single one of those. And then of course, we would love for you to like the video. That helps us in a big, big way, and we so appreciate it. It gets this content out into the world and allows us to make more of these videos for you. So I hope that this has been helpful. If you have any questions, leave a comment, and we will see you next time.